What was your major at Virginia Tech? Now I could make this a short answer or a long one. I'm going to try to answer it a long answer in a very short period of time. So here we go. My major technically when I graduated was residential property management. Actually that was like the concentration. I forget, it was like, I can't remember the name of my own major. Housing and urban development or something like that with it was like liberal arts and human sciences and housing and resource management with a concentration in residential property management. Something like that. Very long and complicated, but we just called it residential property management. So that's was my actual graduation. But what happened was when I went to Virginia Tech, I was applied early decision and I knew I wanted to be in the Corps of Cadets. Because I was in Navy ROTC in high school and I was just like ate leadership for breakfast, so I wanted to have a very difficult experience in college, so I wanted to be in the Corps of Cadets. It's a military school within the university population. It's unique to Virginia Tech and Texas A&M. They're the only public universities that have a Corps of Cadets within their school. But if you think about like VMI or West Point or the Naval Academy or anything like that, those are all military schools. But this is a military school within a larger university, which is unique to Tech and Texas A&M. So that's what I went through at Virginia Tech. So I went in, I knew I wanted to do Corps of Cadets. I didn't know what major I wanted, so I just went in as the general undecided major, which they call university studies. So that's how I went in, but I was thinking in the back of my mind like, oh, I want to be an engineer. You know, it's like Virginia Tech has a big engineering thing, and I like math, I like building things, so sure, I'll be an engineer. Why not? Never mind the fact that I was like a pretty good student. I was like a B+ student, but I wasn't like a genius academically. I would always rely on my charisma and my creativity to get me through the other aspects of school. I did a lot of extracurriculars as well. I was in like FCA and a French club and beta club, and I was in show choir and I was in band, and I was in a lot of different things. I was in the track team. You name it. I did marching band for a while. So when I went in, my major was not like my main focus. So I was thinking like, oh, I'll do engineering, but you have to apply to transfer in, which is insanely hard to get into, okay, because you have to be really, really good. So I went to my first class, which because I wanted to transfer into the engineering school, I was told, there are certain classes, like certain levels of like the core classes you need to take that will be accepted into the engineering school, because they take like harder English classes and harder history classes, that are geared towards more engineering related stuff than you would if you were, say, a liberal arts major, right? Because it's a big school, so there's a lot of different routes that you can go at a school like Virginia Tech. So I went in, and I went into my first college class ever was some English class that I was taking that was like made for people like engineers and architecture students and these people that were like taking really hard majors. And it's essentially a weed out class, right? They make it super hard so that they try to weed people out of these harder majors. So I went into this class, and it was literally just like the introduction, and we're going over the core curriculum and getting a list of books and stuff to read. And I forget exactly the number of books that it was, but it was something like 8 or 12 different like huge novels that we were going to have to read for this class. And I hate reading, like, for the most part, honestly. I like business and leadership and stuff like that, and I like reading like blogs and like stuff related to things I'm interested in, but like just general like novels and historical fiction and stuff like that, it's like it is not my cup of tea. So when I got this list, and I was just like, this is one class, and I'm in the Corps of Cadets. Like, I'd just been through boot camp for Corps of Cadets and gotten the crud beat out of me in that. Not literally beat out of me, but like I'd gotten, my soul just like completely like crushed going through boot camp, and I didn't know anything that was going on, and I'm in this new school, and I'm away from my parents, and I have all these people yelling at me, and I'm doing push-ups all the time, and a lot of emotional things going on in that type of scenario. So going from that, and then it's like, here's my first class for this major that I'm going to have to try to transfer into, and I'm not even sure I want to do anyway. And I'm going to this English class, and this professor is just like totally just like not caring at all. They're like literally just trying to weed people out of this class, and just gives us this huge list of these books that I've never heard of and have no interest in reading. And I was like, I don't think that this is for me. So I literally, from that class, I left and walked to my guidance counselor and was like, I don't want to be an engineer. This wasn't even an engineering class. This was an English class. for engineering students, but I was like, I don't want to do this. What else can I do? And they're like, well, what do you like to do? Blah, 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 blah. And so I was kind of talking. They were like, I think you like business. And I was like, yeah, I do like business. I have businessy things, you know, I've done like, you know, things. I've been like power washing decks and fixing things, Mr. Fix-It, and I've been painting and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I like business things. I'm kind of entrepreneurial. Is there a major for that? And they're like, yeah, we have business management, and you can get a concentration in entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. Why don't I do that? Just go ahead and put me in there. And they're like, well, you can't just transfer in. You have to apply. And you can't apply until you have such and such math credits and so on and so forth. And I was like, well, when can I apply? And they were like, your sophomore year. And they're like, it's going to take you 2 semesters worth of work to be able to even apply. And I was like, well, what's the transfer rate of getting in there? And they were like, 30%. I was like, really? So I have a 30% chance of working for my first year to be able to then get into the business program. And I was like, oh crap, this is going to be hard. I was like, well, I really want to do business, so I'm just going to go for it. And if I don't, I'm going to have to figure it out from there. So I worked my tail off my freshman year, ended up with like a 3.2. Like I studied you wouldn't even not believe how much I studied. Because I was in the Corps, I was in the marching band within the Corps, and basically you just study all the time. You had like 4 hours of mandatory study hours every night in the Corps of Cadets. Like they're big on studying. So I would like go to class, march, do all the Corps stuff, and study, and that's it. That's all I did my freshman year. Literally, I'm not joking. Rachel wasn't at Virginia Tech at that point. You know, she was at another school. She didn't transfer in until her sophomore year. So my whole freshman year, that was all I did, and I managed to get a 3.2. So I'm not like super academic, right? And that's okay. But anyway, so I told you I was going to be short on this question, but so then I ended up transferring in, got accepted, thank goodness, in the School of Business. Did that for a while, you know, a year and a half. I get midway into my junior year, and I'm really starting to feel like a cog in the wheel in the management program there, because it's not entrepreneurship like you think of, like, hey, I started this business, this is really exciting, generating lots of ideas. No, it's literally like business management in a university setting of that size. There were 450 business majors in my graduating class. So it was like you were totally just plugged in. It was like a very university, academic, corporate type of environment. You're studying like union negotiations with management and all this stuff. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is not what I was thinking that it was going to be. I was like, but I was getting through it. I was doing pretty okay for most of my classes. But I discovered they had a program in the liberal arts college, of all places, about residential property management. So it's real estate, which is much more entrepreneurial than this kind of corporatized business management generalized major. So I discovered that, and I was like, this is really cool. It's in a smaller college within the school. I was like, it's not technically a business degree, it's a liberal arts degree, but it's still all like, it still had all the business requirements. So like all my classes would transfer right in. There were just a couple of classes that I would need to take over summer school, and then I had to do an internship, which I couldn't do until I finished certain classes. So I actually had to do a 6-week internship for graduation after I kind of graduated. So after my senior year, I had to do a 6-week internship before I could actually get my diploma. So I ended up doing that. So I went through the Corps of Cadets, transferred into the School of Business with all these extra classes, and then transferred out of that into another major with all these extra classes with a whole 12 credits of summer school that summer. And then I had to do an internship after I graduated. So I really took like the scenic route to get through. Not quite as much as Rachel did. She had like 5 different majors, but you know, she had quite the journey as well, changing schools and everything. So it wasn't as drastic as it could be. But I'm totally like that statistic about number of times you change your major in school and stuff like that. I was right there. So I ended up graduating residential property management. I really enjoyed that major, and then I had a really great time in that major. And then I did my internship, and I hated it. And this was in 2006 is when I graduated. Real estate was like, you were an idiot if you weren't involved in real estate, because you could be anyone and making money in real estate at that point. But I was looking at it and I was like, this is not going to last forever. No, it is not. I'm going to graduate. I'm going to get into real estate. I'm not really going to learn anything because no one knows how to do anything in real estate now. They're just riding the wave. You really learn how to do your best when things are crashing and burning, because that separates the wheat from the chaff, right? But when things are on the rise, like anybody can make money in the dot-com bubble or stock market's going crazy. Everybody thinks they're a great investor. So it's like, I'm going to get on some company and I'm not going to learn anything. and then it's going to start to crash, and the first one to go is going to be the new kid that doesn't really know anything. So I was like, they're going to either just like drive me into the ground or whatever. So I'd gotten a name your own price offer upon graduation from a big commercial real estate company in Richmond here to be a commercial real estate manager. And I would be like traveling around multi-states and all this kind of stuff, managing these properties. And I was like, I don't have any idea what I'm doing with all this stuff. And it's like, this is going to be a really tough road. And part of the whole reason that I didn't want to actually go into the military, because I originally was going to, I had a scholarship and everything, I turned it down because I met Rachel, and I knew that like we were going to be together and we were going to start a family and all this stuff. So I knew like 3 weeks into our relationship, like we were headed down that road. So I turned down my Army scholarship, and I still went through the Corps of Cadets because I wanted to, but I was not actually in ROTC in college. So I didn't want to do that because I didn't want to be away from my family, basically. Just more power to all of our military personnel who are. I can only imagine how hard that is for families. And I knew that for me, that was not my path, so I didn't do it. You know, as I started to look down the road of real estate and moving up the track, if you will, in managing commercial real estate, I was like, it's going to be the same darn thing. Like, I'm going to be managing multi-state properties, I'm going to be traveling and on the road all the time, and I'll be away from my family. If I was going to be away from my family all the time, I would have gone in the military because I'm like very much leadership oriented like that. I would have really done well, I think. So I turned down a name your own price offer upon graduation so that I could power wash houses with my dad, because he had started a business while I was in my senior year of college, power washing houses. And I wanted to learn about running a small business and work with my dad. That was the most precious 2 years of my life I've ever had, was working side by side with my dad. And I'll never get that time back. And it helped me to build some of the foundation of what I've taken and done with Goulet pens, was having that mentorship with my father and having that experience of just going out and just bucking kind of the path that the academia would throw you on, and just starting something and just being creative and coming up with all these different ideas and having them fail and all these different things that I got to do with my dad. And funny enough, had I not done that, I would never have had the seasonality that you have in a power washing business to then give me some free time to explore woodworking, which was another passion of mine, which ultimately got me into pen turning, which ultimately got me into fountain pens, ink, paper, retail, and so on. So it really, if had I gone down the route of real estate or the route of any other type of business, really, upon graduation, I would not be here where I am with Goulet pens right now. So that's coming full circle on this question, a nice long answer for you, but because I was able to go down that journey and was constantly exploring something that was ideal for me and who I am, I ended up being able to be in a position where I could be able to build up kind of what we have here at Goulet Pens. And then it started that journey, which is a whole other story in and of itself, but now you understand a little bit more about my college background.